become the 8th state to legally recognize same-sex marriage. The bill signing, as we've just mentioned, is being held on the first floor of the State House building. And the last time this happened was back in the late 90s when President Bill Clinton came to town to witness Governor Paris Glendening sign a gun control bill. The event is open to the public. A standing room only crowd is expected. And here's the scheduled lineup, at least. The governor, the Senate President Mike Miller, will make some comments, followed by House Speaker Michael Bush, and then the governor. Now, all the people that you see on the steps there, they're members of clergy, they're families of same-sex couples, there are some lawmakers up there. This is an historic event for Maryland, and they're all here to witness the bill signing as close as you could possibly get to it. Now, this is what the governor's same-sex marriage bill does. It allows same-sex couples to marry in civil ceremonies and get the full legal benefits as other married couples. Now, during debate over this measure, several supporters pointed out that it will end state-sanctioned discrimination. The bill extends legal protections to religious leaders and institutions. It further limits punitive actions against religious organizations for failing to perform same-sex marriages. This is scheduled to begin at 5 o'clock sharp, but you know how things go. Well, we bring it back to the studio, and please join us when the ceremony begins, a bill signing ceremony of historic proportions, making Maryland the 8th state to legally recognize same-sex marriage. David Collins reporting live from Annapolis. Now back to you.
All right, David. Continuing with our big story tonight, the governor is about to sign that same-sex marriage bill into law. Let's send it back to David Collins live in Annapolis. David.
We have still more comments.
And he's about to do that any second now. The applause is because the governor poked his head out the door, and he went back in all of a sudden. But this is going to begin any second now. The governor's father-in-law, Joe Curran, is here. The state attorney general, Doug Gansler, is here. Richard Madaleno, one of the opening gay legislators in the Senate, is standing on stage, and so is a Baltimore City openly gay delegate. Delegate Clippinger is standing on the stage. Now, they were supposed to begin this at 5 o'clock. The crowd has filled the first floor of the State House building. And as we mentioned before, the last time this happened was back in the late 90s. It's a huge ceremony. People who are in the hallways are very excited about this. The camera phones are clicking left and right. You see flashes going off. Cameras are being held up like it's a big sporting event. It's a very exciting moment. Now, not to put a damper on the moment, but there is some reality check here. Even with the governor's signature, same-sex couples will not be able to get married in Maryland under this bill until January 2013. And organizers or opponents are organizing a petition drive to trigger a statewide referendum question so voters will have the final word. Polls show that voters are evenly split on this issue. Opponents need to collect some 55,736 valid signatures by June 30th. Again, we keep saying this, but the bill signing ceremony is inching closer to reality. More people are crowding on stage, as you can see. That would include Montgomery County Delegate Heather Mizeur, who was instrumental in drawing up the House votes needed for passage. Please bring it back to us when this actually happens. David Collins reporting live from Annapolis.
Well, we're hearing that the governor has arrived at the podium to sign the same-sex marriage bill. Let's go back to Annapolis and...
They want the same thing for our children. We want them to live in a loving, caring, and committed home that is protected equally under the law. Let's sign the bill.
Do we want to move these? Okay. Take some of these. All my staff wants. All right. That's fine. Hey, Doc. Can you move that down, please? Yeah. right. Third try is always a miracle.
And the bill is done.
We recognize same-sex marriage.
Celebratory atmosphere in Annapolis, as you can see. A lot of applause, a lot of very happy people as Maryland becomes the 8th state in the country to ratify same-sex marriage. David, it looks like everyone there is very pleased.
Well, the governor came out with Senate President Mike Miller and House Speaker Michael Bush, and you would have thought that a rock band came out. They got rock star treatment from the crowd. They sat down. The governor made some very brief remarks. He talked about Maryland being made up of a free and diverse people committed to the principle of religious freedom. He discussed the dignity of every individual, and he talked about how important it is for everyone to live in a loving and caring, committed home. And he called the bill, this is equal protection under the law, and then duly announced, let's sign the bill. Now, it took a little while to sign the bill. There was silence, but cameras were going off, and then you heard the applause when the governor announced the bill is signed. Now, Maryland becomes the 8th state in the nation to legally recognize same-sex marriage. This is what the bill allows same-sex couples to do. They're allowed to marry in civil ceremonies, get the full legal benefits that other married couples have. And during the debate over the measure, several supporters pointed out that this will end state-sanctioned discrimination. The bill extends legal protections to religious leaders and institutions. It further limits punitive actions against religious organizations for failing to perform same-sex marriages. It has its opponents. A petition drive has been organized to put this question before the voters, but today at the State House is one for celebration. Reporting live from Annapolis, David Collins, WBAL TV 11 News.
11 News continues to monitor our big story tonight, history in the making in the state of Maryland. Within the last 20 minutes or so, Governor Martin O'Malley signed the same-sex marriage bill into law. 11 News reporter David Collins is live at the State House in Annapolis. He watched it all unfold, as we all did, David.
Well, Stan, it's picture time right now. Folks lined up at the length and breadth of the first floor of the State House to get a photograph with the governor with the same-sex marriage bill still in front of him. And this is the last group that you may be able to see behind me getting their photo with the governor. After the governor signed the Civil Marriage Protection Act, he handed pens that he used to some of those responsible for passage of the law in the Maryland General Assembly. Before signing the bill, the governor talked about Maryland being one of the made up of, a free and diverse people who are committed to the principle of religious freedom. The governor talked about the dignity of every individual and how important it is for children to live in a loving, caring, and committed home. And under this bill, he pointed out, they will benefit from the equal protection of the law. The ceremony here is officially over. What you're looking at now is some last-minute picture taking. The governor invited some of these folks over to the mansion for another reception. And, of course, we'll have more on this story coming up at 6. Reporting live from Annapolis, David Collins, WBAL TV 11 News.
Hey, David, a quick question before you go. There were several people on Twitter who noted that Senate President Mike Miller was the one person at that signing table who did not seem to be happy about this.
Well, it's understandable. Here's two things going on with Mike Miller. One, he consistently opposes same-sex marriage. The other thing is he let it go through his chamber.
Yeah. Several people had just noted that he was very serious about it.
And I bet people noticed that as soon as the official ceremony was over, he bolted, and Lieutenant Governor Anthony Brown took his seat.
Right. All right, David Collins, thank you so much for the report.
Is WBAL TV 11 News at 6.
And with that, Governor Martin O'Malley has signed the Civil Marriage Protection Act bill into law. And that is our big story tonight at 6. This legally recognizes same-sex marriage in Maryland.
Yeah, and it makes Maryland the 8th state in the U.S. to do so. 11 News' David Collins is live in Annapolis with a closer look tonight. David.
Well, Governor Martin O'Malley, Senate President Mike Miller, and Speaker Bush all signed the Civil Marriage Protection Act. Surprisingly, given the amount of hard work it took to get passage in the House, Speaker Bush did not make any statements. The governor got the reception of a rock star when he arrived for the bill signing. In his brief remarks, he says, "There is a thread that unites the story of our people. It is the thread of human dignity."
And all of us at the end of the day want the same thing for our children. We want them to live in a loving, caring, and committed home that is protected equally under the law. Let's sign the bill.
And with that, the bill becomes law January 2013. Senate President Mike Miller opposes same-sex marriage. He told his chamber before that historic vote in the chamber last week, which we also carried live, that his vote no will be on the other side of history. When the official bill signing ceremony was over, he left quickly. Lieutenant Governor Anthony Brown filled his seat. The law goes into effect, as we mentioned, in January 2013. Those opposed are organizing a petition drive to get the question before the November ballot to let the voters have the final say. Reporting live from Annapolis, David Collins, WBAL TV.